Welcome back to another deep dive where we take the sources you share with us, articles, research, your notes, and really dig into the most important ideas.
And today, we're tackling something incredibly human, something that touches just about every one of us. Those moments when our relationships hit a rough patch. Think conflict, disconnection.
Saying or doing something you immediately regret. Yeah,
exactly.
We've got a fascinating source that kicks off with the scenario that might be painfully familiar. You know, that moment in the kitchen. Parents push to their limit, snaps at their child over dinner.
Right. But this story, it isn't just about parenting. It's actually used to unpack what the source argues is maybe the single most impactful strategy for navigating any conflict.
And for genuinely strengthening the connections that matter most in your life.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to really get to grips with this source. We want to understand why this strategy is so powerful, what it actually looks like in practice, when you're feeling overwhelmed.
And the profound ripple effects it can have. Not just with kids, but partners, friends, colleagues, really anyone you're in a relationship with.
Let's get into it.
All right, let's unpack this.
So the source paints this picture, a pretty classic scene, really. Let's say it's Sunday night. The parent is just completely drained, totally checked out mentally.
Sleep, maybe.
Yeah, already dreading the week. The mental load is just crushing. They're barely holding it together in the kitchen.
I can feel that tension, can't you? Just running on fumes.
And then, into this really fragile situation, walks the kid. Parent puts dinner on the table, something they likely put effort into, right? And the kid looks at it and goes, "Chicken again?" Disgusting.
Oof. That one word.
In that moment of exhaustion, that's the match.
The parent just explodes. What is wrong with you? Can't you just be grateful for anything? And it escalates instantly.
Then the kid screams back, "I hate you."
Yeah.
Runs off, slams the door.
Yeah.
And you're left standing there, the parent just instantly regretting it. That horrible script starts playing in your head.
What is wrong with me? I've completely messed up my kid forever. That awful, gut-wrenching feeling.
And the source is so clear right from the start. That specific kind of pain, that self-loathing after a moment like that, it is incredibly common.
So common. The speaker, who's a clinical psychologist, created something called Good Inside. She says she sees this exact struggle reflected in millions of parents globally.
Yeah, she makes the point that all parents yell sometimes. And, really all of us in any close relationship, we have moments where we just don't show up as our best selves. We have these ruptures.
Sure.
And then in the aftermath, we often freeze up. We don't know what to do next. Do you just pretend it didn't happen, mumble some apology and hope it just goes away?
And this is exactly where the source brings in its central concept. The strategy, it says, has the most significant impact on healing these moments and strengthening connections.
Which is repair.
Repair. Okay, how does the source actually define that? Because it sounds simple, but it feels like there's more to it.
There absolutely is. So based on this source, repair is a conscious, intentional act. It's about going back to that moment of disconnection, that rupture.
Okay.
And taking clear responsibility for your behavior in it.
Yeah.
And also acknowledging the impact that behavior had on the other person.
So it's not just saying sorry. I noticed the source really emphasizes the difference between repair and a typical apology.
That's a critical distinction, yeah. A quick "sorry I yelled, can we just move on now?" That often feels like an attempt to just make the awkwardness stop.
Right, like shut it down.
Exactly. It tries to shut down the lingering feel, the discomfort from the rupture. A good repair, though, does the opposite. It actually opens things back up. It says, hey, we can look at this together.
What I find really powerful in this source and kind of hopeful is that the whole idea of repair isn't about being perfect. Actually, it assumes you weren't.
Precisely. That's where the hope is. It's inherently realistic. Rupture happened. Okay. That's just step one. The source even has this great sort of funny idea, like, check off rupture like you crushed it. Because if rupture is just step one, then repair is step two.
And suddenly you're right back on track towards connection. It totally reframes the mistake. It's not something to hide from, but the necessary first step in a two-step process.
Exactly. You haven't failed. You're just at step one.
Okay, so if repair is step two, what actually happens if we skip it? What are the consequences of not repairing after a moment like that kitchen scene?
This is where it gets really profound, according to the source. Think about the child again. They're left alone with this scary experience, right? The person who's supposed to be their safety.
Became scary mom or scary dad.
Yeah. And a child's deepest need is safety and security. especially from their caregivers. When that gets shaken, they instinctively try to find a way to restore it.
And the way they often do that is through self-blame.
Precisely. It's not logical to us as adults, maybe, but it's adaptive for a child. It sounds like, Mom yelled because I'm bad. Something's fundamentally wrong with me. I make bad things happen. The source brings in the work of Ronald Fairbairn here, who had this really powerful observation. He said it's psychologically better for a child to feel like a sinner in a world ruled by God.
Meaning, I'm bad, but the world, my parents, they're good and safe.
Exactly. Than for them to feel like they live in a world ruled by the devil. Meaning, I'm okay, but the world, my parents, are chaotic and unsafe. Self-blame preserved that core feeling that the world is okay.
Wow. So they take on the fault just to maintain their sense of a safe world. That's incredibly subtle and kind of tragic.
It is. And while it serves a protective purpose in childhood, it creates huge problems later on. These self-blaming stories from childhood, something's wrong with me, I'm unlovable, must be my fault.
They don't just disappear.
No, they become these deeply ingrained core fears. They make us vulnerable as adults to things like depression, anxiety, chronic feelings of worthlessness. These are the very outcomes we don't want for our kids, and frankly, the things many of us want to heal in ourselves.
And repair is the intervention, the thing that intercepts that whole trajectory.
Exactly. It doesn't just remove the self-blame story. It actively builds in the opposite. It adds safety, connection, coherence, love, goodness. It puts those back into the picture.
It's like saying, yeah, that moment happened, but that's not the end of the story.
Right. The repair becomes the new ending to that chapter in the child's memory. It gives it a completely different theme, a different lesson learned.
The source uses this really interesting idea about memory here, doesn't it? That memory isn't just the original event itself.
Yes, it's the original event plus how you process it and remember it later, especially when those memories are revisited in a safe relationship. Think about therapy, right?
Right.
Revisiting painful past events with a supportive therapist actually changes your understanding in the story of that event, even though the event itself obviously didn't change.
And the source is arguing that with repair, we can effectively do something similar for our kids or partners. We can change the past by changing the story of that moment in their memory.
Precisely. You're adding a new layer of meaning, a layer of safety, of parental responsibility that wasn't there in the heat of the moment. And especially for a child whose life story is still very much being written, this is incredibly impactful.
Okay, this makes so much sense conceptually, but how do you actually do this?
Yeah.
When you're the parent who just snapped or the partner who said something really hurtful, the source gives us 2 steps.
Step 1, and this is absolutely foundational according to the source. You repair with yourself first.
Repair with yourself first. Why start there?
Because, as the source really emphasizes, you cannot offer genuine groundedness or compassion or clear responsibility to someone else if you are stuck drowning in shame or self-loathing.
Right. If you're trapped in that, what is wrong with me? I'm a terrible parent spiral.
Yeah, you just can't connect effectively. You don't have the internal resources.
So what does repairing with yourself actually look like then?
It's about creating some separation between who you are, your core identity, the belief that you are good inside, a good person, and your behavior in that difficult moment. The fact that you were having a hard time or are not proud of what you did, it's holding 2 seemingly contradictory truths at the same time.
Like, I am a good person parent partner, and I behaved in a way I regret just now.
Exactly that. It's identifying with your inherent worth, not just your latest mistake.
And that stops the shame spiral.
Yes, it interrupts it, it grounds you, and it frees up all that emotional energy that was being consumed by shame. So you can actually think, okay, that happened. What can I maybe do differently next time? And, crucially,
now I have the capacity to go and repair with them.
Exactly. Which brings us to step 2. Repair with the other person, your child, your partner, whoever it was.
Right. How does the source say to do that? Is there a script?
Well, it's clear there's no single magic phrase, but the key elements are: name what happened from your perspective, focusing on your behavior.
Okay.
Take responsibility for your part, and state what you're working on or what you wish you'd done differently.
Can you give us that simple example script the source uses? I found it really helpful.
Absolutely. So imagine going to the child after that kitchen blow-up, maybe later that evening or the next day. It could be as simple as, Hey, I've been thinking about what happened earlier in the kitchen.
Acknowledge it happened.
Right? I'm sorry I yelled like that. I'm sure that felt scary when my voice got so loud.
Naming the impact on them.
Yes. And it wasn't your fault that I yelled. I was feeling really stressed and overwhelmed.
Taking responsibility.
And I'm working on finding better ways to handle those big feelings, stating the intention.
That sounds almost too simple for the kind of impact it's supposed to have.
It is simple, but it's incredibly powerful precisely because of what it replaces. In those, 15, 20 seconds.
Yeah.
You dismantle the child's potential self-blame story. Mom yelled because I'm bad. And you offer them a story of safety instead. Mom can get overwhelmed, but she takes responsibility for her actions, and I am safe. My feelings weren't the cause of her reaction.
That's a massive upgrade. For their internal sense of self, their sense of safety.
Huge.
Okay, let's talk about what gets in the way of this. What does not repair look like? The source points out things we might do instinctively that aren't actually effective repair.
Oh, the classic pitfalls. The big one is adding a but to your apology.
Right. I'm sorry I yelled, but you wouldn't stop whining about dinner. Undoes the whole thing.
Instantly. Or making your reaction their fault. You need to learn to be more appreciative.
Then I won't have to yell at you. Ugh.
Exactly. The source explains these fail because they immediately deflect responsibility. They prevent any genuine reconnection. They implicitly or explicitly tell the other person, my bad behavior was actually caused by your behavior.
Which is so confusing and damaging, especially for a kid.
Terribly confusing.
Yeah.
And it completely fails to model what actually regulating your own emotions looks like. It teaches the opposite.
So if we consistently practice this, okay, ruptures happen, but then we repair. What does that look like for the child as they grow up? What's the long-term adult impact the source talks about?
Well, the source suggests that these kids, the ones who receive genuine repair, they won't get stuck in those debilitating self-blame cycles as adults nearly as much.
They won't automatically take responsibility for other people's feelings or mistakes.
Right. And maybe most critically, they learn how to take responsibility for their own behavior because they actually saw it modeled consistently by the important adults in their life.
That practice just lays the groundwork for incredibly healthy relationship patterns in adulthood.
Absolutely. How to navigate conflict, how to own your part, how to reconnect.
And there's even a further opportunity that opens up after the repair happens, something about teaching.
Yes, and this is key. Once you've reestablished that safety and connection through the repair, then you actually have the space, the relational capital, let's say, to teach the skill that might have been missing in the first place.
So back to the dinner example.
Right. After the repair about the yelling, maybe later you can go back and say, hey, you're not always going to love what's for dinner. And that's okay. But instead of saying, that's disgusting, which can feel hurtful, maybe you could try saying, that's not my favorite. Or just, I'm not very hungry tonight.
So you're teaching respectful communication, how to handle disappointment appropriately.
Exactly. But that teaching moment, it only feels safe and useful after the repair has healed the rupture from the yelling. If you try to teach them while you're still caught up in your own shame or while blaming them,
it just won't work. It'll feel like criticism or more blame.
Right. The connection has to be restored first.
Now, as we're talking about this, I can almost hear a thought bubble popping up for some listeners.
Is it too late? Thought.
Exactly. My kids are teenagers now, or they're adults, or maybe my moments were way worse than just yelling about chicken.
And the source is incredibly direct and powerful in addressing this exact concern.
Yes. If you take nothing else away from this deep dive, hear this message straight from the source.
It is not too late. It is never too late.
It's such a strong statement, and they offer this imagination exercise that really, really drives that point home.
They do. They ask you to imagine receiving a letter or maybe a call right now, today, from one of your parents.
Yeah.
Maybe a parent you had a difficult relationship with, or maybe one who just struggled themselves back then. And in this letter or call, they offer a genuine repair.
They acknowledge moments that felt bad to you when you were younger.
They say, that wasn't your fault. They share maybe that they were struggling. They apologize sincerely, like, I'm sorry. They offer to listen now without getting defensive. And they express their love.
Wow. Just picturing that. It's incredibly moving, isn't it? The source notes the deep, sometimes even tearful reaction many adults have just imagining that possibility.
It's so powerful. It shows how healing that kind of connection, that kind of responsibility taking can still be, even decades later.
And the logic they apply then is?
It's simple and so hopeful. If you have a child, no matter their age now, they are always younger than you were when you experienced whatever you're thinking about from your own past. Their life story is shorter.
And it's even more amenable to having a new chapter theme added through repair than your own adult story.
Exactly. So if receiving that imagined repair would impact you so profoundly as an adult today, just imagine the impact an actual repair today will have on your child, whether they're 5, 15, or 25.
It really lands that never too late message.
It really does.
So we've taken this deep dive into the concept and practice of repair, guided by this really insightful source. It's clearly not about striving for some impossible ideal of never messing up.
No, not at all.
But about having an intentional, effective way to navigate the inevitable ruptures that are just part of any real close relationship.
Yeah, we've seen how leaving these moments unrepaired can trap individuals, especially kids, in these damaging cycles of self-blame that really can follow them right into adulthood.
And conversely, how repair offers a clear path to fundamentally change that narrative. It fosters security, it models true responsibility, and it actually opens the door for deeper connection and learning later on.
The clear message from this source is that repair is far more than just a quick sorry. It's a conscious act of reconnection that can, in a very real sense, change the impact of the past by changing the story we hold about it in our memory.
It breaks cycles, it builds resilience, and maybe most importantly, it is genuinely never too late to start practicing this.
So what stands out most to you from this deep dive today? Maybe you're thinking about a specific relationship where a moment needs repairing, or perhaps you're considering that brave first step, repairing with yourself after a tough interaction.
Here's something to maybe mull over after this dive. The source really anchors the power of repairing with others in the ability to first repair with yourself. How does truly separating who you are at your core from what you did in a difficult moment fundamentally change your ability to show up authentically and maybe more effectively in all your important relationships?